I'm going to call this meeting to order. It's 7 o'clock, and I will call the special select board meeting of Monday, January 23rd to order. This is a reschedule of our regular January 24th, and we'll start with an approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Moved and seconded. Any changes, amendments? Hearing none. All in favor of the agenda signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next is approval of the minutes of the January 10th Select Board meeting. Are there any recommended changes to the minutes?
I have one. Lines 120 and 121, where it says, and I think I'm speaking for Nick as well in this particular case, it said board members Donahue and Artem have reviewed and endorsed the plans for contract one. We didn't endorse them. We reviewed them and found no problems with them, but we did not endorse them. We're waiting for that third-party review.
Okay.
Yeah, I think the term we used was there was nothing, we didn't see anything we were opposed to.
Right.
Okay. Anything else? Do I have a motion?
I know I wasn't there, but I have a point of clarification regarding Donna's comment under board member concerns. So this is down at 316. So Donna, you asked if the application on K Street about the application on K Street for a solar project, and
Yes.
And Kathleen had said that she had forwarded the application to me for review of the screening, but she'd be happy to send it to you too. And that I had questions citing the project on the, is it Glebe land? Glebe land, but the town attorney said this would not be permitted on the Glebe parcel. I just wanted to clarify that I wasn't really asking that the K Street solar project be put on that land. It was two separate questions, or two separate items, so I just wanted to clarify that really what I meant is that I wanted to be sure the citing was okay. I have since reviewed it, and it is okay. And that I was really trying to make a statement to the select board that we might want to look at town lands and be sure that before we give them up, we consider whether they're needed for any future renewable energy project, that's all. So that's just a clarification.
Thank you.
So I had one thing on line 283. It said Shashak moved to approve the total expenditures, but I'm pretty sure I did that motion, didn't I? Did you want credit for it? So can we change?
To get an extra moment in
Do you
the sun.
remember that correctly?
Yeah.
Okay.
It was you. It wasn't me.
Can we change that? And that's all I had.
I seconded it, so she
Okay.
was just thinking about me that way.
Okay, can we have a motion to approve the minutes with changes?
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Are there any further? Hearing none, all in favor of the minutes as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
I abstain.
Okay. With one abstention. Citizen comments. This is an opportunity for anyone who's here for something that's not on the agenda to speak. Is there anybody here for something that's not on the agenda? Okay. If not, then I believe we have Chief.
Let's bring the party inside, huh?
Yeah. Lots of honoring to do.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. Forgot to turn my phone off.
Are you going to do the presentation?
Yes.
So why don't you come forward, and I think Nick and I can go to the side so we don't upstage you, and you can take this mic right here.
Do you need me to move?
No, you're out.
You know, between December 14th and the 23rd, we had a couple of events that occurred in town which were enough to try anybody. And what we're doing tonight is just recognizing some folks who just rose above the average, just rose above things that they were expected to do, what they're obligated to do, and took the extra step. I first want to recognize a couple of our police officers, Kevin Emilio and Billy Austin. On the 14th of December, they were dispatched to a house fire. And Kevin was the first one there. Bill followed him shortly thereafter. When Kevin was there, he met with the person that had called 911. He told Kevin, "I think my grandfather's in the house." So while the house is on fire, Kevin and Bill both attempted to enter the house. They went in one side of the house while the house is burning above them. The fire department is still arriving in force. They're getting their equipment on, they're getting the gear. It would have been certainly legitimate for these two officers to just stay outside and do traffic or something and not bother doing this. But they reacted above and beyond. And they went into this burning house. They were turned back from the flames and the heat. And then Bill went around the back and attempted to make entry into the back of the house, still trying to get in. They were unsuccessful getting in because the fire had gone too far at that point. And it was only later when the fire department was able to get into the house they found the remains of the occupant and took him out. So for their actions, which were above and beyond, we have a distinguished service medallion to give to both of them. Guys, why don't you come up? Billy, that's your commendation. Better. For distinguished service, your medallions and your ribbons for your uniform. Congratulations, guys. A few days later, an aircraft fell out of the sky and crashed in East Middlebury. Now, once again, what's your obligation when something like that happens? Pick up the phone, call 911, and stand back. This airplane hit the ground with quite an impact and exploded on impact. It was on fire, and it set off a fire on a building next to where the crash was. Pearlie Jerome, Pearlie, come on up, and Josh Parks were both working in the area. Pearlie was across the street working at Airport Auto. Josh was working right almost under where the crash happened. Immediately, instead of just standing by and calling 911, they both rushed to the scene. Pearlie got there first, saw that the pilot was in the aircraft, still in the cockpit of the aircraft. The aircraft was on fire. The engine was on fire. The cabin was on fire right up to behind the pilot. Pearlie attempted to get him out, but he was strapped in and trapped into the aircraft. Josh had come up, and with the two of them, Pearlie got a knife from Josh. They cut the seatbelt and worked to get him out of the aircraft. And they did. They were successful at extricating him from the aircraft. Brought him out maybe 20 feet or so away from the aircraft just so that he'd be safe and away from the fire. I can tell you, this aircraft is laden with fuel. It's burning. The cabin is on fire. In front of them and back of them, they're almost reaching through the flames to get this pilot out of there. So for their efforts, I want to recognize them. I have a letter for each one of you guys and a certificate. It's a Civilian Service Award. The citation reads, "For conspicuous gallantry and selfless service, for exposing themselves to harm in order to rescue an injured, unresponsive pilot from a down burning aircraft, December 23rd, 2016.
Thank you, sir.
Now, above and beyond this, they were both incredible witnesses. They provided detailed descriptions of what they saw as this aircraft left the airport and started coming down. which when we had the crash investigators here from Transportation Safety Board, were very impressed with the detail that they put into their statements. So they not only did an incredible rescue, but they provided critical witness information that we simply would not have had for the air crash investigators to try to make some sense out of how this aircraft fell. And so with that, I congratulate both of them. Is Tara here?
Who?
Tara?
I don't see
Tara's not here. We had a final one here for Tara Plouffe
Oh, the one
from Airport Auto.
yeah, she's the one doing CPR.
Yep, Tara Plouffe was across the street. Actually, she arrived after the crash, and her son had told her a plane had just crashed. So instead of staying across the street and just kind of being a curious onlooker like everybody else, she too rushed to the scene and found where they had dragged the pilot onto the ground. She immediately, without questioning anybody, she asked, is he alive? Nobody knew. All she knew was he was unresponsive. So while 20 feet from a burning aircraft, she began to administer CPR. And she kept it up until she was relieved by the airport manager, who also showed up later, as did people started filtering in at that point. And she continued CPR until the ambulance finally got there and were able to remove him from the scene. So we have a certificate for Tara as well for selfless service, exposing herself to danger to render medical aid to the unresponsive pilot of a downed burning aircraft. And so we'll make sure. I'm kind of proud of everybody involved in these, because it's just an example of what the kind of work that's being done, the kind of commitment to civil service that are being done every day. These just kind of rose to a little bit different level, but this is the kind of stuff, at least from our experience, that we see every day. And I think we just uphold these 5 folks here, just an example for that kind of civil service that we get. We have the police officers, professionals above and beyond the line of duty. Citizens here who could have just stayed back, not gotten bothered, made a 911 call, and stood and watched and been an onlooker, but they got involved. And for that, I think we owe them a debt of gratitude. Thank you all.
Thank you. The one you're talking about.
And actually, if I could add a personal note on that one, Paul Bessler, the pilot, was a good friend of mine. Wonderful person, just a really fine person and incredibly good pilot, actually. But sometimes bad things happen. We would have loved to have seen Paul walk away from that airplane, but it didn't happen. But the fact that the 3 of you made a gallant attempt to save the life of a friend really means a lot. So thank you for everything you did, and we really do appreciate it. And again, what you also helped with the NTSB information is hopefully this type of incident won't happen again. Thanks.
Thank you.
If I may, just a second.
Yes, Chief.
Jared was not involved in any of this, because today is his first day with the police department. So he's our newest hire.
All right, welcome.
Jared,
Welcome.
Welcome.
He lives right here in Middlebury. He's married, got an infant daughter.
Yes.
In 2 weeks, we're going to lose Jared for 18 weeks when he goes off to the police academy, so he'll be in the dark someplace until we get him back in the summer, if you want to see how long it takes to train. And then he'll be in field training for another 12 weeks after that. We expect him to be on the duty roster by September sometime.
Will that bring us to full staffing?
That'll bring us to full staff. Jared was in the Marines. He still is in the Marines, because you never leave. He serves with the Marine Reserves at this time as well. He's working with us. So welcome aboard, Jared.
Welcome aboard.
Well, Chief, well done, and we certainly believe that every one of those was an extraordinary act and well-deserving of being recognized, and thank you for making the effort to write it up. Sometimes those things go
I know.
without being properly recognized, and that was a good job on your part, Chief. Thank you.
Thank you.
So,
That's awesome. Can we do this at every meeting?
It's a good way to start, isn't it? It is a good thing, yes.
well, it's nice that we have the commitment to be a part of it,
Yeah.
but it's also sad that
Has to happen, yes.
So we had to, so I'm not sure I wanted every meeting.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So Chief, I think we're ready for you on the police cruiser.
We received 5 bids on the cruiser. 3 local dealers, each submitted a bid, and we got a bid from Central Auto Sales in Raynham, Mass. The low bid was Foster Motors at $19,708, which included an $8,250 trade-in on one of our existing cruisers we're going out. So right now, they are the low bid, and they meet all the specifications of the bid, and we have no reason to seek to waive the bid for that.
Are there any questions of Chief?
It's pretty straightforward.
Okay, can I have a motion then, please?
Make a motion to award the contract for the purchase of a 2017 Dodge Charger all-wheel drive police cruiser to Foster Motors, who was a low bid, for a cost of $19,708 with the trade-in.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion signify by saying an aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's unanimous. That was an easy night, Chief.
I think I might hang around for the budget stuff later.
I
It's
think we have
always-
some discussion on your budget.
I knew there'd be some question. I'll be here for that.
Okay, thank you. Ann. Thought I saw Ann come in earlier. There you are.
Hello.
Hey, can you walk us through your thoughts on the dog licensing fees?
Well, never seems like a good time, especially when you're budgeting, to ask for a fee to be lowered or removed or whatever, but once again, we're in the throes of issuing dog licenses, and so the same issues kind of are coming up with concerns from our citizens, and I thought, really, this was the time to bring it forward. I'm one of those people, I don't have a dog, so I don't have a dog in the game, and so each year I just sell dog licenses. But you have my memo, and what I'm really looking at is, I guess what I'm requesting overall is I would like to see a complete removal of the $10 fee per license for the dogs that the town of Middlebury puts on. And I think it's a little misleading in my memo because I noticed that I said the state fee, and it really should be the fee by state statute for the town is $4 for an on-neutered or on-spayed dog, and it's $8 it's $8 for the on-spayed or on-neutered and $4 for spayed or neutered. And then for various fees, the state has added on $5 per license. So the basic license fees are only like $9. Yeah, so $9 for the $4 plus the $5, or $13. And we add $10 on, which is allowed by state statute for the purpose of offsetting any rabies program that we have going. And I can't really tell where we have any rabies program specific that we should be adding the $10 for. I can say that we have an animal control officer, and that does cost us some money, so there's maybe some offset there, but I'm not sure I would really consider that an actual proactive rabies program that we have going. And when you look around to other towns, they add maybe $3, $2.50. A couple of towns add $1 for their rabies programs, but we add the maximum that we can. And I think people are quite surprised if they come here and they go to register their dog and they're like, oh, well, you know, I registered in Montpelier, it cost me $8 or something, you know, but or it cost me $9, and here it's going to cost me $19. And so it would make an impact on the budget if I budget based on every dog that we license. Right now we're usually licensed around 450. If I just budgeted for the $4 fee, I think it would be $1,800 that I should put into my budget for dog fees, whereas typically I put in $6,300. So it's quite a drop. But I guess I'm out there to say, I don't think it's fair to add the $10 just to supplement our general fund. I don't think that's the intention of the fee, and I'd like us to look at that.
Okay, thoughts of the board?
Are there any other uses that you make of the money?
Pardon?
Are there any other uses that you make of the money with regard to pets? In other words, is
Well, within my office, I don't specifically make any use of the money.
Does the
So,
town?
I mean, as I say, if it kind of goes to the general fund, it's income that we make, then it's certainly $6,300 average that we take in.
I'm sorry, I didn't make my question clear. I should be. I think your argument makes good sense that we say we have it for a rabies program and we don't have a rabies program, so therefore it seems to me that's a false statement and we shouldn't be doing things like that. The question is, are there other uses related to pets and such like in the town, so that the
think
town
that-
is spending money, in other words,
Yes.
for some purpose, and therefore, you know,
I think
this
that,
money-
I think that would be my point. I mean, I can, you know, if people come to my window, they buy the license, they're asking me, what's this extra fee for? The best I can come up with is we have an animal control officer who is paid either by contract or whatever, so we have some expense around animal. We contract with the Humane Society to house animals that have been picked up. We have an expense there. I think my argument would be that the statute is specifically the authority to add this fee anywhere from $1 to $10 maximum for the purpose of your rabies program.
Okay.
And if there was no licensing required at all, I'm not too sure we still wouldn't have an animal control officer and be contracting
Okay,
with.
So it's the statute that says that if you introduce this, that you must spend it on that, and
Right.
we're not doing it in that case.
And
it seems to me.
I'm just feeling like we're stretching the definition a lot to
Well,
say that we do
Well, if
use
we're
it
not
for
doing it, that's, I mean, I think that's the, and the statute requires that we take the money for doing something like that. I guess that-
Right.
Right.
And if in the future we wanted to implement some sort of program and we wanted to look at a fee in terms of covering that, I think it would be good to check with the other towns to see exactly what are they doing that they're charging so much less than us. So it's just something that's been the practice, the norm, that's what we do year after year, and so this year I'm questioning it, and
So it's about 20 years we've been doing it, huh?
yeah, so I mean, yeah.
You didn't actually
have it.
give the statute, I'd just, it would be
Yes,
nice.
and
Do
I'm
you
not
have it
sure.
with you by any chance?
So it would be in the, I'm not sure of the statute either, because it would certainly be in the animal control sections and that, so.
Is it a compromise to just reduce it and cut it in half? I mean, are we talking about the difference between a loss between 6,300 down to 1,800 in our budget?
Yeah, the budget that I submit to you anyway currently would have for the year you're considering now $6,300 in it that I would expect to take in licenses. And I guess what I'd like to say is I'd like to see you change that figure to 1,800 and do away with that fee. I could certainly say if you cut it in half and we collected $5, then what I would want to put in the budget is $4,050. It would certainly be less. Personally, I can't justify what we're collecting that for myself. I mean,
Which is the point of you bringing it in front of us to
right.
begin
I mean,
with,
I'm
so-
just, and I get it when people come and they're questioning this. It's, and I don't feel like I've ever had a good answer, and if I'm going to give an answer, I'd like it to be a good answer, so.
Well, I appreciate that you brought it to us, and it seems reasonable, too, that we look at it now that we have this information and we want to be fair with our dog licensing fee, so I would support your recommendation to reduce the dog license fee in light of this information. Unless, we can think of a reason why we would want to put a rabies program in place, but I'm not seeing a compelling reason for that, and we could, and then we could raise it then.
Right, and I'm not sure, like, if just off the top of our heads tonight, we thought like, oh, okay, well, let's do a rabies program such as this, that the fee would actually even cover it, so we might be putting ourselves just the opposite into more expense to create a program.
Yeah.
Could I take it a rabies program would be somehow sort of urging the public to have their pets receive rabies shots, which I think is a very good thing.
Or having a clinic.
And perhaps also subsidize it in some instances where people can afford that. I would see that that would be a fair use of the money. I'm hearing from you that we're not doing that.
Right, and that's my
And,
feeling.
but
yeah.
I mean, I suppose the question is, should we be doing that? And I see no reason to keep any of the money unless we do something of that sort. I guess I'm a little amazed that we don't do something of that sort. I mean, we do want people who own pets to have them immunized for rabies, and
that is part of the licensing
We check
thing
with-
anyway, through the state. I mean, the purpose of the licensing is that they come in and they verify that the pet has been vaccinated for rabies, and then we have some sort of list, if a dog gets lost, that possibly you can find the owners and those sorts of things. So to a certain extent, we are kind of complying with trying to keep the rabies under control. But I also feel that people not registering their dogs now would possibly register them if it didn't cost so much. And we do have people who at times will register their dog. They've got a new puppy, they come in, they register it maybe the next year, and then it's like, well, if my dog's not getting away and picked up, I'm not doing this, And then I do see where people who are registering their dogs are complaining that they're paying a high fee, and other people aren't even registering their dogs, so.
I did find it, I can read it. It says an optional license fee surcharge of up to $10 per license is to be implemented by the legislative body of a city, town, or village which has established an animal and rabies control program for the sole purpose of funding the rabies control program.
Right.
It's pretty clear.
fairly clear. Couldn't be clearer, it seems to me.
Right.
Well, it seems to me there's two things here. One is, as you point out, Victor, it's the aspect of the rabies control. So the money's not going toward that. But the other aspect is, as was pointed out, some of the costs associated with people who have pets. An animal control officer, for the animal shelters, those things. So what's the cost that we're paying for those things? And I don't have the numbers in front of me. And could, in fact, we come up with a split, as you talked about, to cover those costs? I mean, I'm looking at the price differences, and I'm seeing 19 and 23. And again, I don't have a dog in the game either, so it doesn't strike me as an absurdly high amount of money for an animal, for that. I mean, our difference is, the examples you gave were $7 to $11 difference than the other towns. So, I mean, again, I don't know what it costs to feed a dog. And of course, obviously depends on the dog, but it doesn't strike me as a huge amount. But if there's some way that we could find, maybe based on the fact that what the statute says has to be used for that, but to go to something that compensates for the cost for these other services.
Well, but it's not, I mean, I suppose you could stretch it and say it's rabies control. I actually, from what you're describing through the licensing project, we do. And I think the question is, should we be doing it more vigorously and perhaps even subsidizing in some instances getting a rabies shot and so on. I mean, I would like to see us do that. I mean, I think as a public safety issue, it's,
With having an animal control officer too, you're reducing these, you can go into third world countries and they got dogs running everywhere, and that's part of a rabies control, is making
Right.
sure you don't have all these dogs that aren't owned and protected. So it doesn't necessarily mean that rabies control doesn't say you have to be giving them shots.
that's right,
You could be
that's right.
culling the loose ones. So I think they probably, when they instituted it, took a liberal interpretation of rabies control.
And I would think if the animal control officer picks up a dog and is found not to have a rabies shot, one would assume that would be an outcome of having picked up that dog before the owner could get it back, right?
Right.
I would think, I don't know.
I wonder, because we contribute to Homeward Bound, and if we're in partnership with them to hold these clinics, if that makes sense, and, since we are contributing to them already, could we say that these kinds of clinics are covered by our contribution to Homeward Bound? That was a thought I had.
Yeah. That would fit.
Because we do want the
We do contribute,
service, we
right.
want, and they're doing a clinic, in fact, very soon about chips in dogs for identification, so, I mean, for all I know, maybe they do provide neutering and rabies clinics, but I haven't kept track of that. But that's neither here nor there, maybe, because it comes back to this point about whether we're using it in a dedicated way. We could say that we're using it inadvertently by making a contribution to Homeward Bound, as we are in our budget already. So if we did collect this, could we say we're going to specify that we're going to add that to Homeward Bound and maybe reduce Homeward Bound's donation by a certain amount to offset it? I mean, maybe that's the way we can balance it in our budget, perhaps.
Do we know, these other towns that are charging less, do they have an animal control officer?
I think it's not unusual for some of these towns, say, that do charge, like, from the comparisons, Shelburne would be the next highest to us. We charged it 10. They charge 3 additional. That's the highest one in these comparisons. But a lot of the towns do have rabies clinics. So when people come in and can possibly have a lower cost or free rabies vaccination.
Right, I know that Homeward Bound has like a feral cat program, because my sister had some feral cats in her barn, and she was able to bring them in and get them rabies shots and neutered, and it was all covered by the program, so, that doesn't necessarily apply to dogs, but it is part of a rabies control.
I would rather feel, if we're taking the money, no matter what amount it is, that we're doing something proactive. I'm not exactly sure what a proactive program would cost, or who administers that, or who takes care of all of that. But I do feel uncomfortable just charging the maximum without any relation to what it is exactly supposed to offset. And I'm sure even charging the maximum probably does not offset completely what we contract with Homeward Bound and our contract with Barry Forbes.
I mean, I think to your point, Laura, I like the idea or the concept, that I don't know I'm not sure of the amount for Homeward Bound that we give either, but the idea that you're using that money to offset something that other taxpayers pay that don't have dogs, I mean, it seems to me not unreasonable. Maybe we could reduce that amount
But
somewhat.
if it's something
But I think it's not
visual that
unreasonable to actually
we
offset
can
the
see this is where it's going.
contribution.
Yeah. Because I feel we do also have the issue of those people who do not register their dogs because it's so expensive in Middlebury. And part of that, if you're looking at the statute, it would certainly be the responsibility of the governing body to do a census of the dogs each year. As I said in my memo, I think that's something that the state certainly turns a blind eye to, and I can't imagine most towns do it. And probably they turned a blind eye based on the fact that it would be a financial burden to the towns to do that.
I think we have bigger issues than doing a census of
Yes,
dogs.
yes. I mean, there's all sorts of weird things around dogs that, you know,
Yeah.
would be very expensive to do. Yeah.
So is this something that we should get decided tonight so the budget can be updated, or?
Yeah, it sounds like they should, right?
So, just a couple of pieces of information. So Addison County Humane Society, Homeward Bound, $5,000 is our contribution each year.
Okay.
And then.
Is that the tax voted, or is that our contract with them?
That's our tax voted.
Tax voted, so that's from the voters saying they want to contribute this amount.
The dog warden was $13,063.
How much?
$13,063.
That we budget.
And do we do the Humane Society also?
Well, that's Homeward Bound. That's the
Yeah, but-
5,000.
But that's
We
social
have a
services.
contract with them as well,
We
don't
do
we?
have a
I
contract
mean,
with them, a
that-
per dog type of.
Per dog, yeah.
contract.
And, yeah.
Oh, so that's so they only get money that way if there are dogs picked up, so we don't, okay.
I would say the 5,000, to
Isn't
me,
that-
would be separate as well. That's what the voters have said they wanted to contribute. There, that doesn't have anything to do with any contracts or anything.
Well, I like the ideas. My question is, if we wanted to do some sort of, halfway fee that then goes to something else, can we, based on our own interpretation of the statutes, or should we get a more official interpretation of the statutes of what we would like to spend it on? I just know that,
Are you recommending that we add expense?
No.
well, if, what
I don't
Donna
think
was-
any of us are,
No, Donna was saying to take,
Half of
do a
it.
half, maybe $5.
Like add
fee,
$5 as our fee.
And use that to, what Laura was saying was to offset some of the things that we're already spending.
right.
Can we do that with our interpretation of the statute, or should we ask somebody if that's something that we can do?
Well, I think you can. Those things are certainly activities that control animals, which controls rabies, so.
Then, that's all right.
So we'd find another line item in our budget where we could reduce it to offset what we would say we were going to reduce this registration fee by, which could potentially be half or all of it that is proposed.
That's,
Actually, that wasn't what I said, I don't think. I
Okay.
was saying, let's reduce the $10 to 5. I don't know how you want to apply the 5, but I wasn't saying keep charging 10 and apply 5 out of it. I was saying
Well, we're
reduce the
charging
fee from
19.
10 to 5 and call it a compromise and feel that we're making other donations that are generous to Homeward Bound, and that the $5,000 is fine, the $5 is fine, since we have a dog control program, which does cost us money.
I would like to actually see that offset that in the accounting, would be nice, like, that it goes towards that somehow, rather than,
Well, it's.
Right now, it just feels like it's
These
general
are general
funding.
funds, they're not special funds, and we
Right.
already are trying to deal with one special fund. I have zero interest in creating a special fund for dogs. In your mind, just know that it's offsetting. So,
If we're spending
not-
that money. I mean,
we're spending that money.
Right,
It's
right.
going
So-
towards our animal control.
Yeah.
It is.
So, I mean, you can easily tell the voters when they come in with good conscience that we are doing, with that money, what we're spending it on is animal control, which offsets rabies. And
which is what I've been telling them, it's for like the animal control officer, and that's where it goes. And, yeah, I don't know if I agree personally that it's,
in your position, you need to live it.
well, I tell them that. I've been doing it for 15 years, and I see a lot of instances where dogs are not registered, and I think it's because it's so expensive. And so I thought it was a good time to bring it forward. If you want to continue doing the $10, we'll do that. But at least I can say this board has reinforced that decision, and they're happy with that.
I do think I'm hearing that there's an interest in the board to split it.
Yep.
So I don't know.
That made
I'm
sense.
disinclined to change it, really.
I'm inclined to just keep it the way it is. I'm looking at
I think
6,300
it's being
and
used for a
6,360.
purpose, and it has to do with public safety and animals, and I don't see that, I mean, it's, I agree with you, it's not in a narrow sense rabies control, in the sense of what we're doing is advising people and giving dogs shots, but that's part of it, and I think that that it should be, that dog owners should make a contribution to this. I don't see that it's something that breaks the bank.
No, I understand that, but there are a lot of expenses of animals.
But
And
I realize we have a lot
and
of
I
animal
see it now, there are
expenses.
definitely more dogs, maybe Middlebury College implemented, you can bring your dog to work if it's registered, so people have been coming in to register their dogs, which obviously haven't been registered. So I do understand when the people that are registering their dogs every year feel they're supplementing. I'm happy to do whatever, as long as I can say, this is what it covers, and this is what the board is happy, and I think it was time to revisit it and know that you want to charge the maximum. You know, Middlebury's the most expensive. So,
I can go either way. Can I have a motion, though? Feelings of the board?
I like the 5.
Like the 5?
I like the 5. Go for it, Donna.
Great. Yeah, I would like to make a motion that we reduce our fee for the registration of a dog by $5.
I'll second it.
so $5 on the additional fee. Yeah.
So the motion.
It seems a compromise.
Instead of the 10.
The motion would be, our total fees would be $14 and $18. 14 for spayed and neutered, and 18 for unneutered dogs.
Yes.
I have a motion and a second?
Yeah.
Is that what I have? Okay. Comments on the motion?
No, it was good discussion. It was good to
Okay.
clarify what we're
I'm still
using it for.
inclined to keep it the way it is.
I'm going to vote no.
That's okay.
So,
I'm not in a compromising
I-
mood.
I-
but-
so I get the accounts right, hands up, show of hands, those in favor of changing the, in favor of the motion, signify by, okay. So it's going to carry, I'm going to abstain because I could go either way, but I'm 4-3, call it.
Okay.
Good.
And that'll be
So you're not abstaining.
this next year's budget, so.
Budget you're
it'll-
working on now, we're currently selling licenses at the rate that we're at, the higher rates.
For till
Till July.
till the March, they have to be registered by the end of March, right?
They have to be, yes, registered by April 1st.
Right.
So that's within this
So-
budget year,
so
and then when
that's-
we start the new
So the
budget year.
following year, you'll change them.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. So I guess we're asking that line item to be at 4,050. Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. I understand the reasoning, and I think a few dog owners will be very pleased. Thank you.
Thanks, Dan. Next is Infrastructure Committee.
Do you want to talk? And I support you, or what do you want to do?
Do you want to run through minutes or any of that protocol first, or anything, or just go right to the engineering contracts?
I'd say go right to the engineering bits.
Okay.
Halpin Road.
All right, so this project is a culvert replacement on Halpin Road, a couple tenths of a mile north of Painter Road. I sent out requests for engineering proposals to do that work, received 4 back. Green Mountain Engineering was the low engineering proposal at $21,900. Part of the process, I conduct a pre-proposal, so all the engineers who are going to propose on the project not only get the paper, but they get the meeting too, to make sure we're all on the same page. So this, recommend the board approve the Green Mountain Engineering for $21,900. Part of the conversation at the Public Works, or the Infrastructure Committee, was to hear the concerns, if any, from the emergency services, police, fire, and ambulance, and I've spoken with those heads, and they're all good to go on it. So not concerned about timing or response. So, of course, there needs to be the coordination and heads-up warning when that's going to happen. I spoke with one resident today who lived out there, had a question about it, and basically said, we're not quite there, we're just going to start the engineering process after the board approves, and once we know what that time frame is going to be, we'll let everybody know and give them a heads up. So.
And Dan was going to be talking with the engineers to have them design it, hopefully with a short closure planned in, if they can. And I think that's important, so.
Yeah, the goal of this is to pick within reason the engineering solution that limits the closure to the road. So that's the goal, one of the goals.
Okay, I have a question, Victoria?
Yeah, when I read through the minutes, you were going to investigate the cost of keeping the road open during the replacement, and do you have a figure for that?
He does.
Yeah, roughly $30,000 to $50,000 extra.
That's a lot of money.
And I gotta tell you, I think it'd be more than that, but that's just.
Well,
'Cause-
I've
but-
talked with several neighbors, and they are, needless to say, concerned about
Yep.
the additional time and distance that emergency vehicles have to travel. And it's to say nothing of the inconvenience, but, I mean, we have elderly who are housebound on the road. We have 7 young children living on the road now, and if they need services, they're not gonna wanna wait the 15 minutes that could have been done in 3 or 4. So they're concerned. I understand that's a lot of money, extra money. And, but is this, there was also something about a grant that's going to be paying for this work? Is that,
The state grant is a maximum of $175,000 towards the project.
So-
So this would be above and beyond that. We are maxing out as it is the $175,000. So there is no more money.
On multiple projects?
No, on that project.
On that.
Right, so there's no more money available from the state than what's already budgeted for the project. We're maxing out the $175,000 grant.
So if there's any extra money, that $30,000 to $50,000 would come out of town money.
Right.
I thought the bid was $20,000.
That's our part, that's our portion.
Part of a large, that
Well,
was,
Right.
this is just the engineering, the 20,000.
Right, that's our
Yeah,
part.
we're just
yeah.
discussing the engineering bids right now, right?
Yeah, and I think, I think the concern is well placed, but we're gonna be keeping that in mind and talking about it. And also, we have the figure, so if it looks like it needs to be that way, then I think the infrastructure committee can consider that. But if emergency services feel like they can work through that without spending that money, I think that's the better way to go. I know, it's a tough one.
So there's a possibility it could be shorter than 6 weeks.
I don't think anybody's even looking at 6 weeks, so,
Well, they're bid proposals.
but that wouldn't necessarily mean it would need to be closed for that amount of time. That might be just the project time. So, we'll find out from the engineers.
So sorry.
My name is Jason Sherry. The culvert actually spills onto our property. So I was just wondering if any thought has been put into what type of culvert it's going to be. It is an active waterway with wildlife. There's quite a lot of fish and life in there. It's not just a spillway. So is it going to be a bottomless or?
Well, either, the choices are some kind of either metal pipe or concrete, or a mix of those, but basically those two are probably the solution that will be come up with. But they will have a bottom in them, but the bottom will be below, there'll be stone on top of that, so you won't see the bottom.
Okay.
The structure will have a bottom, but it will appear, to the habitat, it will appear that it does not.
Okay.
So-
So it'll be filled and it won't be just a circular metal culvert.
Right.
And is there going to be any change in the grade of the road?
If anything, we'd bring it up a little bit.
Will be right now.
Yeah.
So, I think some members of the infrastructure committee wanted to ask the engineers or ask Dan to ask the engineers to include extra engineering to consider options. And my point was that I think with this project, the time of the closure is really gonna depend on who the contractor is and what the actual construction schedule is, and not necessarily part of the engineering, and that we needed to move the engineering forward because the side, the wing walls are failing. So, and if there's any hope of getting it done in this construction season, we need to move the engineering forward, so.
Correct.
So I'll move that we award the engineering services contract for the Halpin Road Culvert replacement project to our low bidder of Green Mountain Engineering for a total cost of $21,900.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Any other comments? Hearing none, all in favor of the motion to award the engineering services to Green Mountain Engineering, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay, next, Dan.
May I ask one more question? Once the engineering is done, is there an opportunity for public input at that point? Or once it's done, it's...
Well, we can have a presentation at the public, or the infrastructure committee.
Mhm. We'd be happy to
Invite
have
you to
you
that.
come and talk about it some more, because several of the committee members also had concerns, so that makes sense.
Well, because with Irene damage and the way all those culverts blew out, it makes sense to do it right if we're going to do it.
Right.
If you want to give your information to Kathleen, she'll make sure that you're invited. Okay?
Well, all the residents on the road,
Yeah, if they, we can do all that.
that would be
Yeah.
good.
And
Yeah.
Susan's the head of the infrastructure
Hi.
committee, and that's probably your best opportunity to inject into the process, because it would be earlier on than when it comes to us.
I'll be there.
You'll find that we're asking similar questions all along the way, so come,
And
join us.
I think Dan will be prepared when we get to the point of bidding that project and discussing it with the contractor, clarifying those details, so.
Infrastructure usually meets in the morning.
We do Thursday mornings, usually the second Thursday
People should be aware
of the month, yeah.
some days.
And if we need to do a special one or something, we'll figure that out. Okay.
Okay?
Okay.
Next.
All right. Next is North Pleasant Street, Charles Avenue project. I combined these two projects together so we can take advantage of quantities of scale for the curbing and sidewalk. Again, we had a proposal went out, invited engineering firms to submit. 4 of them did. We had a pre-proposal meeting for all of them. The low proposer on this project is Green Mountain Engineering. Their cost is $50,200. Just so you're aware of what this is, North Pleasant Street will get new storm sewer curbing and some sidewalk from Main Street to Methodist Lane. Charles Avenue will get new sidewalk curbing, the road will get recycled, and there's a small water main and sewer main project as part of that stretch. So I'm requesting the board to approve Green Mountain Engineering for $50,200.
Motion?
Go ahead, Heather.
I'll make a motion that we award the engineering service contract for North Pleasant Street, Charles Avenue Infrastructure Repair and Improvement Project to low bidder Green Mountain Engineering for a total cost of $50,200.
I'll second. Oh, you take it, Victor.
That's okay. Next one.
Okay, comments?
I just have a question about the North Pleasant Street sidewalk and curb, Dan. So is it just on the one side of the street that we're talking about?
Yes, the west side,
Which is?
the church side.
The church side, okay. I'm just thinking about the crossing again at Methodist Lane where there's a lot of crossing. And is that an opportunity to be looking again at a crosswalk? Or it's not because of the other side not fitting?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
It's a
I
function
just
of the
wanted to
hill and
check
the curve.
again.
Yeah, yeah.
If we were working on the other side, then probably, but this
Right.
one is just
Okay.
dealing with.
All right, that's
It's a
all I
great
just wanted
question, though.
clarify it. Because I didn't know if that was the time, like, to put in for
Right.
anticipation of, that eventual connection. Do you put in the right?
I don't think we want to encourage people to cross there if there's nowhere for them to go on the other side. That would be my concern.
Yeah.
Well, that was Chief Tom Hanley had expressed that concern some months ago about not encouraging people to cross there just because of the curve in the hill. It's not a good spot.
Okay. They will anyway, but.
Any other comments, questions? Okay, hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the North Pleasant Street, Charles Avenue Engineering Services to Green Mountain Engineering, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Okay, the last one is a proposal from, actually it's amendment from Aldrich and Elliott engineers for some work at Well House 3, which is out on Route 116. This was scope is to do a small building addition to the existing well house. What we want to do is separate the chlorine and fluoride chemical feed storage and equipment away from the electrical and telemetry that's in that building. There's usually a condensation issue, and those, even though they're in containers, there's still fumes that get in there and make a mess of things. So we want to do a small building addition to get that equipment out of there in its own room. And so their proposal to do that is an amendment to their existing contract, which is part of the water monitoring project along 116. That's the original contract. And this work would be for services not to exceed $7,500. And they'll get to work right at it. And that monitoring project needs to be completed in May. So I want to get moving with that.
Okay.
So I'll make the motion this time, to approve amendment number 1 to the existing Aldrich and Elliott engineering service contract for well monitoring project for a not-to-exceed cost of $7,500.
I'll second.
Seconded. Any questions? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
And then I was going to go over
Yep.
capital improvements.
Sure.
Not sure if people wanted to look at the capital improvement budget. We made a bunch of changes, some minor changes based on the fire department came back and talked to us. And so we made an adjustment in line number 19, down to $2,500 for thermal camera replacements, and that helped. We also took out $10,000 from the transfer equipment to tower and put those amounts into the repeater replacement of $12,500. And the repeater is actually going to cost $25,000, but we split it half in this year and half for next year, and that should cover the cost of the repeater. We also made some changes to Parks and Recreation. Parks and Rec had $7,000 for tennis court resurfacing and, $7,000 for tennis court resurfacing, and then $7,000 for basketball courts. And East Middlebury, if you recall, Kathleen talked about it at our last meeting, that they made us an offer. What did she say? An offer we couldn't refuse. And so we took those two $7,000, put them together in $14,000 for basketball courts, and that's going to be split with the East Middlebury Prudential Committee to resurface their entire basketball court. And then next year we'll put the $14,000 back into the tennis courts. So it's just rejiggering where the money's going so that that project can happen next year instead of waiting 2 years. So I'm not sure if that makes sense. It does to me, but I'm not sure if I explained that really well. So capital improvements, met with going over all the fire department needs. I think in the next couple of years they'll need to make some changes, but the rest of the numbers are good for now. They're close enough. So I think The infrastructure committee felt comfortable supporting the capital budget totaling $948,418. So I'm not sure if you have specific questions, but we've been talking about it for months, so it's nice to all be on the same page.
So that $948,418 is the exact same figure that you saw before. We were able to make some adjustments so there would be no increase in the capital budget over what you previously saw.
Right. So it's all changes for us, but not for you.
So is that a motion for us to?
I would love to make that motion, to approve a final FY18 capital budget totaling $948,418.
Second.
Don't everybody jump at once.
You just take it.
No, it's all right, it's all right. You can-
Any last questions before we vote?
No.
Hearing none, all in favor of approving the capital budget of $948,418, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
So I think we were going to go over projects really quickly. Creek Road, it's right now in its second phase of the study, is ongoing. Hopefully we'll have an update at our next infrastructure committee meeting. We're going to be forming a subcommittee to review the results and bring it back to the infrastructure committee when it's finished. And that'll include a staff member, a member of the Addison County Regional Planning Commission, a member of the infrastructure committee, and we've asked Dean Reum to represent the interested neighbors. Anything else on that? I don't think there's any news. The Middlebury River project, now that our audit is done, we should be able to start that up, hopefully have that come back to the select board soon. Saw a couple emails about that today. That'll be nice to get started on. If you recall, we approved hiring Amy Sheldon as the project manager for that, so hopefully we'll be able to bring her in and bring the select board and the infrastructure committee up to speed on that project. There was, Adam Luigi had talked to us about a stormwater grant possibility when he was here last, and suggested that we apply for that. And indeed, there are no matching funds needed. And I think, Dan, you met with some people recently to talk about that project?
Other drainage issues, but just a question to, let's see if we can find out what the grant quantities, dollar figures are out there, and they're not sure yet.
Okay.
That was the question, so.
Yeah.
Hasn't been determined at the state level yet.
Okay. Were there any other projects? I know we didn't get a chance to review too many during the meeting, so if you don't have to.
No, I'm good, I'm good.
Okay, great. I'm not sure if people had questions about that.
Any questions of Susan or Dan?
Thank you.
We're working hard.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, next on our agenda is our discussion of economic development initiative. And 2 meetings ago, we kind of left it to that we would send it to the voters. In reflection, it didn't seem to me like that was necessarily the way that I felt comfortable going. And so I think you've all seen the materials that Kathleen did some research, and we do have, because it's a reserve fund, they're fenced funding that has to be used for economic development, but it's not, but the select board has the authority to manage those funds for that purpose, that intent. We did not, at this point, include the 1 cent in our budget for next year. We have a surplus of funds that we've retained, and so my recommendation, we've done phase 1 of our review, and phase 1 the committee was tasked with reviewing whether that was a need that we continued to have, and if that was, and were we happy with how we were, where we were going currently. Nick presented the white paper. The white paper said that there was still very large support within the community, great support within the community for a community-focused economic development initiative. However, it also said that we were not achieving, it recognized that we were not achieving our goals with our current initiative, and recommended two things. One, that we establish a second phase of the review, which was to look at other models and ideas, you know, causes for failure and or, you know, not, maybe don't call it failure, causes for not achieving what our goals were, and recommendations for amending our efforts into it and making changes in a direction that would perhaps do a better job of achieving our end state. So with that in mind, I was thinking that we could set a goal that by the end of, that we would create this second committee, and that by the end of June they would have a recommendation back to us to what the next phase 2 was. I should back up. The other recommendation within the white paper was that we continue that we continue to operate the existing program through the next FY with the surplus funds. Now, so there's two things that I was kind of disagreeing with after I had time for reflection, and I would like us to discuss. Number one was I think we control our own destiny, and the voters are expecting us to manage it and not to bring it back to them necessarily, but to bring them a report of how we're doing and what our plans are. And number two, I don't feel comfortable to give something that has been going on for close to 4 years another full year continuation, knowing that we haven't achieved our goals to date. I think it needs to be tweaked sooner than later. And I think we need to set a more near-term goal to do that, to make that adjustment. So those were my thoughts. I shared them with you, and I shared them with, and I know like Ken Prine is here. He was a part, he's been a long-time part of developing the position and oversight of the position, and was a participant in our white paper committee review. And so with that, I guess I would open the floor for discussion now.
A couple of thoughts on this too is that when we started the white paper, we looked at the white paper would lead to one of three recommendations. One was to continue this MBDF, the Business Development Fund, as is. Option two was we would continue it with changes. Or number three was we would terminate it. And as we went through this extensive interview process, we did hear solidly back, don't terminate it. We need to continue economic development. But during that same time, we also heard, as Brian mentioned, that in many respects we hadn't achieved many of the goals and objectives that we had. So what that said was, don't keep it operating as is, but don't terminate it, so that led to that middle of continue with adjustments. So what Brian's suggesting, and this was what we came up with in the task group, was now to take this to a next step, to appoint another task group, probably largely drawing off of many of those people we interviewed. We had some really good, solid dialogue, a lot of good conversations. They represent a large part of the Middlebury business community. Put them onto this task group with the goal now of taking this, advance the effort to one of two options now, as I see it. And that would be, we keep the existing structure with adjustments to make it more successful, and those will help be defined, or we change the structure with adjustments to make it succeed. But to give this next task group the opportunity to determine what in fact that should be, and to come back with a list of recommendations, so that rather than letting it play out for the entire year, we could look at some significant changes after this, a June 30th date to deliver a document.
No. I guess, and if I understand this, I mean, I'm sympathetic with what you're proposing. That effectively, I think the white paper has made clear that our effort has not succeeded. I'm reading Ken Prine's sense that we were going to jumpstart the economy. It didn't do it. And I don't blame anyone for this. I think a very good effort was made. And I think, as Donna has said, we need to continue with economic development. The question is, how do we do it? And we don't know that yet. So I think a committee, the Blue Ribbon Committee, that really considered all sorts of options, and these would be people, I think, with experience and imagination, and there are people around of that sort, I think, that they could come up with something. But as I understand it, then what we're doing now would end at the end of the fiscal year. And we would bank the money that we have as surplus to use for whatever this group comes up with. I mean, which perhaps may be by June. I don't know. I mean, it's.
So I misunderstood then, because I thought maybe you were proposing that we try to have an answer by June.
Correct.
Correct.
So it may mean that it continues, but it would not the same. I mean, we may continue, but in a different form. We don't want it to continue as is now, because we're recognizing it's not working. No. But that it would just end June 30th is not accurate at this point.
Well, I'm saying that what we're doing now, which has not succeeded, would end.
Right.
And something new would take its place.
Something new would, or,
that would
yeah,
be our,
okay.
That would be our goal, yes.
And do the people, Nick and Ken, do we think we can come up with something by then to replace what we have, or is that an unrealistic goal?
No, I think we think it's a realistic goal, and as we found with the white paper, you have to set a date.
Yeah.
And you have to aim for it. Now, I wouldn't say it, I mean, it could take a little longer, but on the other hand, it could also take less. But
Well, and I recognize that. I wanted to.
It's
Your
realistic.
sense that you think that you could do something in that
Yeah,
time
the
realistic.
answer, Heather, is yes.
Because we were originally talking about a year to do that work, and now you're shortening it to about a half a year, and so I just want to make sure that we're giving ourselves enough time.
No, we think it's very realistic.
Okay.
And at that point, and it could be less, but the idea is that it then comes up with a direction for proceeding, whatever that looks like.
Yep.
But by doing this method, we feel that it would give the most latitude to the committee to look at all the array of options. So it keeps some stability in what we're doing, there's still some motion and progress, but in the meantime, looks at ways to make it better.
So, having sat on that committee as well, it'll be a challenge to have it done by the end of June, okay? But whatever the committee, and I think we have people that are interested, we've made a list, that can be vetted, of people that should probably be on that committee going forward. The advantage they have is that they've got an example of what did and did not work over the past 4 years. It's not starting from zero ground. There were things that did work, okay, and there were things that didn't. So coming back in a period of 6 months ought to be realistic, particularly if you put the time frame on it. Our committee, we had a limited time frame, and once you have that, and once you understand that you're going to submit your findings, so you tend to be, you just are more focused, I think. So I think that's realistic, that we can have something, that the committee will have something by July 1, and that you're terminating what you are doing on June 30. And at that point, you're going forward, recommendations will be made at that point, which, I have no idea what those are going to be. It may be similar to what we've done in the past, it may be totally different. But I don't think it's unrealistic to have that.
One of the advantages we find, too, is when you set a time, because the people we're thinking about, and we've had conversations, and plus, if any of you have somebody you think we should consider, please mention that. They're all busy people. And their reluctance is to sign on to something that has no apparent end. Whereas when you set an end, it gives the group the chance to schedule and to really focus on, as Donna said, and get it done. I hate being on committees that have a no termination point, because it's just difficult. and that's the same way with this group. So that's going to be an incentive, actually, to meet this deadline.
So what happens to the MBDF committee that we have going right now? Like, what happens for them, and what does that look like between now and June 30th? And
Well, we have a advisory committee that we're continuing through the end of June, the
Okay.
existing structure.
that's what I'm trying to clarify.
My sense is that our structure needs to be changed.
Right.
And the way we go about economic development needs to be changed to get a return on our investment. And I don't have the solution for it. I certainly have thoughts that I would inject, but
Right.
it needs to be, you need a lot of data points, and you need really to be able to crunch that and figure out I think you need to present 2 or 3 potential solutions and then have us look at them and or have that committee look at them and analyze them and not become focused on just one potential solution. I think they really need to do some quality analysis of options and explain why that whatever option they recommend is the best option, and show what else they may have considered. So it's I think 5 months is sufficient time.
Okay.
We've planned wars quicker than that, but it means that you got to be all hands on deck, and they've got to be focused when they're together for a few hours. It's probably going to take a couple-hour meetings at a time, not a 1-hour meeting here or there. So
I'm just trying to clarify, I hear what you're saying, I'm just trying to clarify so to make sure that my expectations are the same as what you're saying, because I think this kind of stuff is tricky. Sometimes our expectations can be different, and then we get to June 30th. So June 30th, what happens? It comes back to the select board with the suggestions. What we have in place ends, but the suggestions of what we're going to do forward would then be vetted and decided on.
my hope is that we would have something by June 30th that would go to the select board as a recommendation for us to approve, to adopt, to roll out immediately. That we have the funds to do it. I don't want to stop economic development.
Right.
I want to succeed at economic development.
I'm just trying to make sure.
We're not doing it. I mean, I think it's generally accepted. that we're not meeting our goals. And our goals were lofty, we all admit. That probably were unachievable to begin with, but even modest goals we're not meeting. So we need some tweaking of our methodology.
What was interesting about the conversations was that we didn't have a situation where somebody said, just, no, I don't want it, and that's it. There seemed to be solutions that they were thinking about, and ideas, or at least how to make it better. So there was a tremendous amount of the benefit that came just out of those conversations, is what I think we learned as a task group that can be beneficial, hopefully, to this, well, it will be to this next group, to give them a starting basis. But there was a lot of some very interesting concepts, and some of them at first I remember thinking, well, I'm not sure that'll work, and as I thought about it a little bit more, it's like, no, it looks like it has some validity. So, I think, as Brian said, there will be, I'm sure, multiple ideas that are going to start to formulate, and then refine out what gives you the most benefit, or gives you collectively us the most benefit.
Laura?
I was just going to say that I support the direction you're going in with putting the surplus into a capital reserve fund, and I think that the voters will have an opportunity to talk about their feelings about economic development at town meeting, relative to our decision to do that, if we agree tonight to do that, for our town budget. And I think of the opportunity to reframe this, and I think some of you are going in this direction, by looking at it as economic health for our town. And I see like an economic health council rather than maybe economic development, even though we'll achieve, I think, a lot of common goals. And I'm thinking of broadband, for example, like if we were able to get that would improve the economic health of a lot of our businesses, and that what we were seeing over the past 5 years was the growth of the beverage industry, so there is growth of existing businesses, and those could bloom even more if we had more infrastructure for our existing businesses. And it could be coaching, or it could be other technology resources that are needed. But I know that when we looked at this in the beginning, we were looking at a big out-of-state company coming in, and maybe that was one thing, at least that I saw in our early discussions about economic development. And that's what we're not seeing. And maybe we're seeing that may not be our future, but we do have a future, an economically healthy future, and this council could look at that.
I just wanted to clarify, because it sounds like what you're saying is for this fiscal year, 16-17, that ends in June, when that ends, the new fiscal budget is not collecting the 1 cent
Correct.
to go towards this fund. So the surplus that you currently have would take you through that next fiscal year, and then you would be going to the voters again on town meeting for the next fiscal year.
Right.
If there's a plan that you've developed that's in place and kind of running, shall we continue that?
Exactly.
That's it.
And frankly, I would prefer put it in as if we keep it as a town and not, say, funding some other agency within the town to do it, outsourcing it, so to speak. However we do it, I think it should be in our general fund, and voters vote on it every year. It's kind of an aside here, because I think we've looked at it contextually. We had it that 1 cent in the budget that voters voted on each year, but there's some discussion over whether you can vote in 1 year for 5 years worth of collection.
So I just wanted to make a request. When members for this council are considered, can they come before, maybe not come before the board, but can we discuss the options as a board or have some input on that? Like, I don't have a specific suggestion to give you, but I'd like to know who you were considering, and can I put input on that list, knowing who you were considering?
Well, it seems to me, I mean, we're the ones who are going to appoint this task group, so therefore, just like we would with any other committee. That
Well,
makes
sometimes
sense.
it's just kind of, done, with
A
a,
lot of
with a
committee
special.
assignments are done that way, right. I mean,
Right, some
frequently-
committees it's
yeah,
done that way,
that's
so I
right.
was just asking with this committee if we could have some input in that. One, I just have concern, like, with what you or Brian, one of you said something about being busy people and time, and I just don't wanna see us appoint people and then have them not present at, a significant number of meetings, so.
Right.
I just wanna I guess I wanna put some thought into that and who they are and wanna have some input, so I'm just making that request, so.
Should we go, should we all solicit potentials, or how would you?
And I don't know that I have any specifics, I just wanna see the list and think
Right.
about
No,
it.
I think what you're saying makes sense, but I think that there are a couple of things in there. One is that we need this done quickly, okay? When we say 5 months, we can't take a month of select board meetings to figure out who's gonna be on that committee. So I think the names could be recommended, maybe suggestions are sent to Kathleen. We look at that list. It's vetted, and we bring back the recommendations to the next select board meeting. I think every person whose name is on that list has to be contacted, and it has to be a very clear commitment. You can't, I think if there's one thing we learned, you can't have committee members not show up. That's just not acceptable.
Well,
And
that's
so anyone
what-
coming onto that committee has to make the commitment that this is the time frame, this is the kind of meeting structure we're going to have, and you have to be able to obligate yourself to it. And I think having input is very helpful. I mean, we have a very broad range already of people looking at community leaders and town planning, looking at, economic leaders in terms of business, looking at social leaders. I mean, it needs to be a balanced group to collect all that input that you want to do. But I think for sure we need to make that selection by, if possible, the next select board meeting. Have the information, discuss it at the next select board meeting, and go forward from there.
And I
Otherwise,
don't-
we lose a lot of time.
I agree completely, I just wanted to be able to
Yep.
be a part of that if possible, that was my request.
Yep, absolutely.
Victoria?
I think the point of a balanced committee is, important, but if this committee's recommendation isn't ready by June 30th, and the work is getting ready to start July 1st, a month, if there's a month where we aren't doing development or studies or what, do it right, and don't force yourself into such a tight timeline. The world will not end if you don't start this new work until August, or, but, yeah, take your time to do it right and get the right people. And I would suggest the committee could even include someone from other communities who have done a similar process successfully, and find out, whether you consult with them or have them on your committee, but you shouldn't. There are communities out there that haven't been successful, as we haven't, and there's some that have been successful, and find out what they did. It's a perspective that, it's an outside perspective that might be helpful.
Yeah. We certainly want to get it right, I
Yeah.
think. I think we're cognizant of there is a
I'd rather see it
timeline, and we
start
have
in
a,
August or September than
Yeah.
trying to
Yeah,
force it
that's-
to be ready July 1st.
we have a goal,
Yeah.
but we are also reasonable to, if we need to extend the goal.
Yeah, I think Victoria makes a point that when we reach June 30th, we just don't keep going unless we have something that the committee has brought that we really
Right.
think is going to work. That we have confidence in. And I'm sorry to use this expression, but I think that at that point, we should stop doing what we're doing now, because I don't think it has been accomplishing what we wanted. It may be economic development, but it's not productive economic development. And I think that, I'm sorry to have to say that, but I believe that's the case. And therefore, what we're saying is that we're going to set June 30th for a date of doing something new, and we have this reserve so that we have something to start with. I think that economic development in general is continuing, but we're developing a new way of doing it that we hope will have results. I mean, no one can say it's going to, and but I think we all agree that we want the economy of the town of Middlebury to grow, and so.
Is it possible to is it possible to decide, like, you know, in May where my concern is, you know, to Victoria's point, if we're not sure, you know, if we need another month and if we continue another month as is it really going to be that big? You know, whether we set a date right now to end it, but in May, if we evaluated that.
Can I
I
just
guess I'd have to
interject
have a
there?
reason why.
I think that the date is a goal, okay? We're assuming that we're going to have intelligent people on that committee. At some point, if they say in May, you know, we're not going to have this done in 30 days, that, you know, we're not holding them to that. I mean, you have to set a goal. But I think to Victor's point, it could be they maybe come back.
But Victor, I think, is suggesting that regardless, we are ending things on June 30th. Am I correct?
Well, I'm saying that I would not continue to do what we're doing now beyond June 30th because we've decided that it really doesn't work.
Right.
It isn't to say that we're ending economic development on
Right.
June 30th.
I know.
We're working our way beyond that, and I have confidence that there are people with insight and talent and who can come up with a plan. But I don't think that somehow, I mean, it isn't, keep doing what you're doing, and so on and so forth. I mean, I don't see that, I mean, I feel a certain obligation to, a strong obligation to the town, that we use the funds that we've raised in taxes and received in other sources wisely.
And I agree. I'm just, you know, what if something comes up and there's a possibility but we've agreed to end it June 30th and we don't, you know,
Well, we're not ending anything.
It sounded like you were pretty adamant about saying it's done on June 30th, regardless of where we are.
That the present initiative that we have ongoing right now should stop on June 30th.
And I just want to have a little
making that statement, and
wiggle room in there, I guess.
I would be concerned if we simply just dragged it on because we didn't have anything.
No, and I agree. I guess the finality of it with some of the uncertainty in the next couple months is just, I guess I just am feeling like I want to be a little bit more cautious than just a final, you know. I want to see how this committee is going and how they're progressing, and, you know, does something come up that's unexpected that may make sense for it to continue how it is? I don't know.
Okay, so can I, just to move things forward for tonight, I think we're in agreement that we need to establish this committee immediately, and I'd like to have everybody, if you have recommendations, get them to Kathleen, and if you could contact them and see if they're willing before you submit their names, so that we know we have a group of willing, interested parties to participate. And if you could do that by the next select board meeting. I think we need to get the committee established and moving. As part of town meeting, then I would brief the voters on where we're at that time and what our plan is with economic development, as well as a financial report of the money, what we have collected to date. And I think there are some feelings about ending on June 30th. And I think when we get done through the budget here, and everybody's had a chance to have feedback and chance to reflect, I think we have a meeting or two that we can say what our exact final plan is on that. Okay? Is everybody okay with that?
Yes.
All right, so then we're going to move on to finalizing the FY18 general fund budget proposal.
So, where we stand? At your last meeting, we went over all of the changes proposed to date. Proposing one other based on the findings of our audit report that puts us with a very strong fund balance. So what I'm putting forward tonight is to take, to apply $150,000 from the fund balance rather than applying money from the local option tax to the budget, which would get you exactly the same place as far as this tax rate goes, but gives you some additional time to develop a strategic plan. That's totally for your discussion. If you wanted to continue on that route, you certainly could.
Can I ask why the shift?
We have the money available in the fund balance. It is a new initiative. I didn't know if you needed more time. I wanted to get public input on the proposed, maybe at town meeting, discuss whether people are in favor of using the local option tax or not.
Right.
We have, we just finished, I don't know if you've all had a chance to look at, but, and it's posted in, on the packet, where we just got our audit for June 30th, 2015 financial statements. And we are carrying a larger fund balance than we need, even after the monies that we pulled out of the fund balance to keep the tax rate unchanged the last couple of years. And so we can continue to do that, and those funds are probably should be used before our local option tax funds, because those we can actually continue to accrue pretty easily, but there is a guideline on what we should retain in our general fund balance.
I can understand all that. I just wanted to make sure that there wasn't a reluctance from the board to ever go into the local options tax. I wanted to just sort of find that out now.
Not on my part.
Okay.
No, I was more than willing to do it, but when we sat with the accountant this week, and we found out that we had more money in the checkbook than we thought. It was, I think it's the appropriate thing to use monies that were already collected as part of our property taxes to go towards our general operations. We should use those monies first.
I got that.
I definitely like that. I like the opportunity to be able to ask voters how they feel about local option tax use.
In that regard, do we have, I forget, I read what you had on the
poll.
Was there anything about that?
No, but we can add that, and
I
we
think
can
that
think,
would be the
and we
place
could
to-
think about like how we construct that question. So we can discuss it, or I can work on a draft and submit it to you. What would you like?
Did you come up with that poll this year?
I did, and we can look at that
That's
poll
great.
when we feel ready to look at that. I don't know if we're
So
at that
jump-
point
I'm jumping the
in that
gun here.
agenda. We can come back to that when we're ready. But I can give you my rationale for the questions that were posed on that first draft for your consideration, which can be changed.
She's done a lot of work on it, so, yeah.
Are we
Any
finished with
questions on the
this?
budget?
Why don't
We
we
never
wrap
finish
up the
the
budget? And the warning, maybe under the warning, we can talk about the
That's
poll
what I was
for
thinking.
town meeting.
Okay.
With the changes as outlined last time, and that change, what you're and with the dog fund, the dog fee change that you just enacted tonight, what you're looking at is a total FY18 budget of $10,321,456, with the amount of $7,106,034 to be raised by taxes.
And that reflects the change we just made about the dog.
We did
Registration.
5 cents, not the 10 cents. Is it, you had already,
Okay.
you had projected that?
I had the $5 and the $10.
You also have $4.27 too, right?
You know me.
I do, yes.
Okay.
All right. I'll move that we order to finalize and approve the FY18 budget of 10 million. Well, everything you just said. I'm not going to repeat it all because you just said it. $10,321,456 with $7,103,000.
That does not include that change. That's
Okay.
$7,106,034.
$34 to be raised in taxes for inclusion on the town meeting warning for consideration by our voters on Monday, March 6th, 2017.
Second, anybody?
A second.
Moved and seconded. Questions on that, comments? All in favor of the budget as moved, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay,
Can I make one request?
yes.
When we get to town meeting, and because this is new for me, I don't know how it works, but when we're considering things that will increase the budget, can we present how it will change the budget? Because like, if we decide on the K-9 program, if we decide on the extra social service agencies, can we present what that means in the increase? Because sometimes I always forget that those things we're voting on are not included in those numbers.
So in that regard, on the screen right now, I did for the dog licensing fees. So that brings your estimated tax rate with the $5 change to 95.22 cents, decrease of 0.42 cents over last year's budget as estimated currently. So a slight reduction.
Yeah, that's still amazing.
But I guess what I'm thinking, but that's this budget so if we decide to do these extra things that are included in the warning, then there may not be a reduction.
Right.
And I just want that to be
Transparent.
apparent, yeah.
She's got it.
Yeah.
I can see her.
I'm trying to
she
get
likes
there.
that.
Okay. Brian,
You can tell that works for Kathleen.
maybe you intend to do this, Kathleen, but now, once we have finalized our budget, if it's easy for people to see it by going to a button from our homepage, that would be really good. So maybe we could bump that up to the top.
So in that regard, I will make the change on the dog licensing fee and post it on the warning on the website tomorrow with a link from the homepage. Before that change was made, everything we've done has been incorporated into the budget document, which is posted in your packet and in the budget folder as well. So I'll just update that in the morning, and it'll be back up.
Okay, when we say that we give a link, though, from the homepage, is the link right there, and it says budget, so, and did we do that last year, too?
Laura wants it right at the top of the page with blinkies and yellow.
So like right underneath the congregational church.
Exactly.
Like the crosswalk.
So when you get on it, yeah, like the crosswalk.
That's not a problem, right?
Gotta be real specific.
No, I just didn't know.
We'll see what we can do
I
to
know we
highlight.
have links, but sometimes you have to, use that,
She doesn't want anybody to have to scroll,
Okay.
right?
right.
You want it to be right front and center.
That's awesome.
Okay, are we ready to go to the warning?
Yes.
Yeah, just give me a second.
If you can find it. Right from the homepage.
Yeah, from the homepage. So, this is the warning that you've seen before. As we just discussed, well, since the chief is here, Article 6 includes the numbers for the K-9 program as provided by the chief and supported in his memo to the board. I'm sure he'd be able to answer any questions you have on that. So we're looking at now $30,610, $14,360 being the first year in startup costs, $13,050 for a used fully equipped cruiser, and $3,200 for the equipment fund maintenance to support the establishment of a police K-9 program. Article 6, if I understood your discussion of earlier this evening, Article 7 would come off the warning. And then I had sent this to moderator Jim Douglas, and he suggested that we take off the legal voters of the town of Middlebury are further notified that voter qualification, registration, and absentee voting shall be as provided in chapters 43 and 51 of Title 17 of the Vermont statutes annotated. Checked with town clerk Ann Webster, and she checked with the Secretary of State's office, and that can come off. No need to include that.
So we didn't really talk about it last meeting, but I had talked about wanting to have as much voter input on the K-9 program as possible, and just thinking that the numbers attending town meeting are lower than the numbers voting by Australian ballot. And we vote, you know, by Australian ballot for $1,200 to Riverwatch, for $2,500. So I brought that up as a possibility. It may be too late in the process to consider that, but it wasn't, you know, there's always the argument that Australian ballot gives people the opportunity to vote no easier, but that's not my reasoning, is I want to have as many people input on that as possible. I'm just looking at numbers that attend that vote versus town meeting. That was my only, given the size, I just want to have as many people participate in that as possible, that's all.
I'm confused, so what are you asking for?
That the K-9 program be voted by Australian ballot.
Drop in Article 6 down to under the Australian ballots.
I mean, I actually agree with you on that. I really do. I think it gives more people an opportunity to weigh in on it.
We'll make the presentation, the presentation would be made at town meeting,
Right.
but the voting on it would be on Australian ballot.
Yeah.
I would like to have a lot of people weigh in on that too, but.
Well, I don't know that we'll get a lot, but we'd get more. I don't know.
I guess, you know, but if we're going to go with that rationale, then why wouldn't we do it for
Yeah.
a lot of other articles, like the one
Yeah.
article?
Yeah, we could.
Yeah,
we
I think
could-
Article 5 is a good one to put there as well.
Yeah, we could do Article 5 there
These are
too.
both new items. I think, part of it is that they're
New expense,
they're new, right, they're,
new fees, yeah.
exactly.
I'm fine with that.
Me too.
Yeah, I'm
Versus
fine with that, too.
equipment, like Article 3, where you're still dealing with a large sum of money.
No, I mean, I think we do that on a regular basis. I think that can be done at town meeting. I don't think they're one and the same, although, you could make an argument, I suppose.
Yeah, you could probably make.
Ooh, this is going to get philosophical.
Excellent.
Chief, I agree with Heather. This is a new program. It was brought by people not inside the police department for a K-9 program, and I'd rather see more of a mandate, wider acceptance than a few hands at town meeting.
Yep.
So I absolutely agree with Heather.
Okay.
It does have an impact on the budget. It is a fairly robust cost. But good program. I certainly would
Oh, yeah,
support it
I-
myself. But I agree that I think it would be best to have more wide mandate on it by having more people have an opportunity to vote on it. And we get really a sense of how much it's desired in the community and what it costs, which is why we wanted it separate, so you could see every penny that this program actually costs.
Yeah.
Which were the questions we got 2 years ago. Was, what does this cost? And I didn't have the answer for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I like moving the stipend down there too, so,
Yeah.
yeah, that works for me.
So we're
well-
moving Article 6 to Australian ballot. Did you also want to move us Article 5?
Yes.
Is that a
Yes.
consensus?
Yeah.
Okay, so Article 5 to Australian ballot?
And do we want a dedicated article on the local option tax, or do you want to see that in the survey?
I think the survey.
Survey.
Yeah.
I don't want to box us in,
Yeah.
Okay.
because I think if you have a poor showing, you could have a vote that you have to abide by.
Yeah, I think we'd have to do a lot
need
of public
education.
information
Yeah,
and education before putting that on.
There's, I think an education process, if we're going to take it to vote, is a pretty critical part of that.
Okay.
So, can I get a motion then, please?
Well, let's see, move that we accept the town meeting warning with the recommended amendments of moving Article 5 and 6 to Australian ballot,
And deleting Article 7.
and deleting Article 7.
And there's also the deleting the section at the bottom, the legal voters of town of Middlebury.
Yes.
And deleting that part.
Okay. We have a motion, and do we have a second?
Second?
Seconded by Donna. Any other changes? Okay. All in favor of the motion as amended? Or the motion of the
Town meeting warning.
town meeting warning as amended, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay. Believe,
Do you want to talk about the poll?
Yeah.
Or is that,
let's wait till Jim's here to give us an update, and we're not even close to on time, Jim, I'm sorry. That's fine. Jackie had to nudge him and wake him up.
Hi, everyone. So you've been provided with the revised version of the modified grant agreement. And just a reminder, this is the third of 3 agreements that have redefined the project management responsibilities between the town and V-Trans for the rail bridge project. The other 2 being the previously approved finance and maintenance agreement and the reassignment of the town's contract with Kubricki. So now you've got the third piece here, which is the modified grant agreement, which you've previously seen. The purpose of the agreement is to contractually guarantee the funding of my position, the local project liaison, for the duration of the rail bridge project. This was formally requested by the Selectboard and will be paid for with a combination of state and federal highway funds. So the MGA replaces in its entirety the original grant agreement that was signed in February of 2013 and the amendment that came along in August of 2014. You previously approved the modified grant agreement at your October 25th meeting. It was not executed at that time because Middlebury's audit had not yet been completed. That was essential to Chris Cole executing the agreement on his end. So in order to move the agreement forward, before he left as Secretary of Transportation, Chris Cole had language added to the agreement requiring a financial review of Middlebury. This again was because the audit had not yet been completed. So you'll find that language in paragraph 7 on page 1 of the agreement. That's the kind of most notable change to the agreement, is requiring a financial review. Other than that, as Kathleen pointed out in the notes to the board, There's a grant detail sheet has been added that summarizes the grant award. There's no changes to the amount, there's no changes to any other data on that grant detail sheet. And attachment H has been eliminated. The purpose of that attachment H was simply to record the town's DUNS number, and that's been added to the grant detail sheet. So I think, with the exception of that language regarding the audit, this is exactly the same agreement that you previously approved, and it's now come back to you. Town council's reviewed and recommended that the select board vote on approving this final version of the modified grant agreement.
Questions of Jim?
So would this be signed by you as the chair or Kathleen?
Town manager.
Town manager, as Kathleen. Okay.
It'll be signed by Kathleen, and then go to new Secretary of Transportation, Joe Flynn, for counter signature.
Okay.
Care to make a motion?
I do make care to, as a matter of fact, yeah, sure. I'll make a motion to approve the modified grant agreement with Vermont Agency of Transportation, or VTrans, for the downtown bridge replacement project, and authorize town manager Kathleen to sign this.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any other questions, comments? Okay, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed?
Opposed?
Ironically, the addition that they had was to watch us for financing when they dropped the grant by millions of dollars.
It went from 17.5 million to 250,000, but they're going to keep us on under observation. The other project news, the environmental assessment is just getting underway now. The first team meeting will take place on Wednesday. I will be participating in all those meetings so I can report back to the select board on progress with the environmental assessment. VHB will lead the environmental assessment. The environmental folks at VTrans will, of course, be closely involved there. Wayne Simmons has asked to come to the select board meeting on February 27th to provide you with an overview of the environmental assessment process, what's involved, and the timeline that's involved there too. So he'll walk you through everything that they will be doing on their end, the different issues they'll be looking at, the public review period, the federal highway review period. There's a very well-defined process in place here, and he'd like to come and give you an overview of that as they get underway. So that'll take place on Feb 27th, your meeting there. Okay.
Any other questions of Jim?
Well, what about the right-of-way for the road? Does that take place, or is that on hold too until the environmental assessment is completed?
Right now, VTrans is looking at being able to continue discussions with local property owners around right-of-way, but not to the point where any final agreements would be made. They would just like to continue those discussions so we don't lose additional time when we come to the end of the environmental assessment.
Okay, I just know that there was a lag before, and I'd hate to see a lag again, so I just hope it's moving along.
Yeah, VTrans is very concerned about the amount of time that would be lost if no right-of-way discussions were taking place during the several months of the environmental assessment. Mm-hmm. So they're working with Federal Highway to try to get a sign-off on that so they can continue to talk with the National Bank of Middlebury, Marble Works, with the town. There's been productive discussions on all of those fronts there, and to have them just go on the sideline for several months would be counterproductive for the project. So we also had an opportunity to meet briefly with Secretary Flynn on Friday. He was very interested to get first Wayne's presentation on the project so he understands the technical aspects of the project, and to get the town's input as well and on the project. And Brian, I don't know if you wanted to provide a summary of that meeting, or
just briefly, he's in the data gathering stage and open-minded, and thankfully, our project team is in place. Kevin was reappointed to his position at V-Trans, and so we still have all of the middle level and upper level managers assigned to the project that we had previously. So there is some continuity there. They understand the project. They know the project. They know, and they're very anxious to get the environmental assessment underway and project that they'll have that ready. Of course, there's part of that process is bring it out to the public for comment, and so they will be keeping us in the loop and engage us. As you know, Jim will be our eyes and ears and keeping us going on that. At the same time, he's interested in hearing from not just the select board, but local delegates, the chamber, all the different. So he's going to do his own assessment of the project. And so I know he's met with Bruce Island, and I think that was a telephonic meeting. But he's he's not coming in with a prejudging the project, and so, but he is understanding the urgency to do something, and so I think everybody's awaiting the results of the environmental assessment. And last thing is that our third-party engineer review, the college has a critical event this week in their trustees meeting. And so following that, there's generally kind of a breath of air, and while they're taking in the oxygen after that, we're going to be getting going. A little pressure on trying to get our documents written so that we can go out for proposals on the independent engineering review. So that's kind of where that's at right now.
Great. The only thing I would add is that, the secretary had been inaugurated less than 2 weeks ago, and when we met with him, which I think shows the concern and attention that this project has gotten at the highest levels, or continues to get at the highest levels of the AOT.
Yeah, that was on, he's definitely got a full calendar just of his own staff briefing him, but he was concerned enough about this project is high enough profile he wanted to meet with town leaders early on in this. So I'd say we're the top priority to get something done.
Yep.
Good.
Is Middlebury Bridges still the site to go to for information about the project, or is there another one?
The V-Trans website
one now
is
is the
become kind of the project center right now.
And what's that website again?
Is it Middlebury Bridge and Rail, or I don't know.
Yeah, it's off of, I'll have to send that out. I don't recall the URL offhand, but it's under it's under the V-Trans website under projects.
Okay.
And you can get to Middlebury's project there, and there's a website that's been developed by Jill Barrett, who is the public outreach person.
Again, I'm just thinking of our homepage and our links, because right now we still provide a link to Middlebury Bridges, and it either it could be there, or it could replace that, or it could be from that one.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
vtrans.vermont.gov/project/Middlebury/Middlebury Bridge Rail Project.
That's why I didn't remember it.
Yeah, it's that's why
Couldn't remember the third section.
Jim, what are you trying to say, Jim?
I think a link
a link.
will work better.
Yeah, we'll put that in place, Laura. Good suggestion. Yeah.
Okay.
Anything else on the Bridge Rail project? Thank you for your time.
Good, thanks, Jim.
Okay, we need to appoint a voting delegate for the special business meeting of VLCT, February 15th.
The happy winner.
Second.
Were you really expecting someone else?
So can I get a motion, please?
I move that we nominate Kathleen to be our representative.
voting delegate to the February
voting
15th, 2017 VLCT Special Business Meeting. We got a second?
I'll second that.
Okay, second by Susan.
Thank you, Kathleen.
All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Is there any getting out of it?
No, I appreciate your faith and confidence in appointing me to this position.
We appreciate your competence. So it's easy to
Yeah.
have faith.
Is this the meeting at which we're supposed to give feedback on the
Oh,
issues?
This
No,
is,
no.
they have a very simple amendment to their bylaws. It's just changing their, what they usually vote on at the annual meeting is the policy, but requires a two-thirds vote for any changes in the existing policy, and it's very cumbersome each year when we have to sort out what was in last year's policy, what's in this year's policy. So we're going to present just a new draft policy, and people at every select board in the state can review that and give their feedback through their voting delegates. So that's in the fall.
Okay. Thank you. Check warrants?
Check warrants.
Okay, I've reviewed the check warrants, they're in good order. So a motion would be in order, that's me. Shoot. I think I'll move. That we approve the total expenditures of $368,994.53, with accounts payable being $271,891.03 of that, and the balance payroll for the period January 11th, 2017 through to today.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Okay. Why don't we let Kathleen do the town manager report, and then we'll get back to your
Did everybody sign?
town meeting.
I think so. I think that was the last one.
So, in your packet, you have the FY15 audit. Please direct any questions you have to me, and I will forward them to the auditors and report back at your next meeting. As indicated earlier, our fund balance did go up significantly over FY14, and we're moving forward on that basis. So the final, you have been invited to the final ID4 annual meeting on Sunday, March 5th at 4 to 5:30 at the Mary Hogan School. This is just a wrap-up closure ceremony for them, and they asked you to come. Susan suggested that with the merger of the ACSD, people should review all of their bylaws for their committees and boards to see if there are references to ID4 and UD3 and update them accordingly. Common level of appraisal. The school board had some questions about our common level of appraisal, as that will affect our state education property tax rate. Town assessor Bill Benton reviewed that inquiry and said that we didn't, that he was comfortable with the CLA as calculated. It was reflective of the valid sales. 289 sales were included in that study. Jim did not report that he met with USDA, and in a proposal to extend the deadline for implementing our marketing grant for the downtown was well received and pending more information. Quiet neighborhood nearby signs. Despite his initial enthusiasm for our idea of quiet neighborhood nearby signs in East Middlebury on Route 125 and 116. Jim Clancy of the Vermont Development Review and Permitting Services section emailed us denying that request for placement of the signs and suggesting traffic calming measures. On advice from Susan and the Daytons of East Middlebury, I reached back out to James Clancy today and asked if he had any suggestions for traffic calming measures to incorporate in the state's paving project in East Middlebury this summer.
Good.
The LCT town meeting tune-up is February 8th. If anyone would like to go, please let me know by February 1st. And we have several annual reports of other agencies. The Actor Annual Report, which is also available on their website, and the Addison County Chamber of Commerce Annual Report, which is available in the town manager's office. And that's it for the town manager's report.
Okay, before we do board member concerns, I'd like to have you go through the,
Okay, do you want to look at it on your screens so you can see? So Kathleen included two things, a draft of the town meeting poll and also some tips for writing survey questions, which I thought was important, that you have as context for any surveys that we do. Because we always want to be asking ourselves what we're trying to get, from these questions, what we anticipate. So I tried to do that, and largely what I said is that I see the poll as more a public relations tool, an opportunity to let people know what's happening and invite them to give us some feedback if they want to. So the first question, just ask them simply if they want to be added to our town email list. I decided to handle it this way this year because I thought it would be an easier way to collect any additional names rather than have another spot they have to go to in the lobby to tell us that they want to be added to the town email list. But we could revert back to that if we wanted to and just have them check if they're on the town email list. I figure since they're already letting us know that, why not collect their names? So that's that. If we wanted to add any other town email lists, we have the opportunity to do that. I put the mid-bike ped list there, but if we had others that we thought we wanted to put up there, like rail bridges or something else, if we had that, we could. I'm just giving you a sense of the opportunity that's there. I'm not suggesting for this one that we add any more than what you see here, but you can think about it. The next one, have you visited town websites? Check all that applies. Several have links to Facebook pages. Again, it's just awareness. Do you know about these and what they do, like the townofmiddlebury.org that gives you access to links to the town budget, various departments, and recent projects such as the airport, bridges, and rail. And then I put a note there, look for updated ones soon. Just, again, it's informing people to be on the lookout for that. I didn't specify the date because we don't know yet, but we know that we're working on that. ExperienceMiddlebury.org for a link to the Park and Recreation website, the Ilsley Library one, Community TV, Police, Fire Department, and Energy. Those are our town ones so far. I didn't put down like the rail Middlebury Bridges one because I wasn't sure. That's why I asked the question. But that could be added, or the other address now that we have it could be added, although it's clumsy, so I'm not sure. But the idea, again, is just to let people be aware that we have lots of points at which they can get information. So the next question, town government services. This is a new question that I put in. Again, the goal here was just to make voters aware of the range of services that their local government offers, in case they weren't aware. But, and they could give us feedback. It could be satisfaction. It could be another scale, so I've just listed a couple, and I've included economic development in there so that we have an opportunity, again, we could get some feedback on that, on our library, on police, any of the offices. You could change the scale from satisfaction to, would you like to see services increased or decreased in any of these areas? So you don't have to measure satisfaction, you can measure something else like that. So that was the intent there. And then because it's giving them a chance to think of all the departments, once they get to the comment box, they might think of a specific thing that they might want to tell us, a comment or suggestion that they wish to share about a town service. And last year, we got a lot of positive comments, in response to the poll. So you can capture that too, which is kind of nice to know, that, you know, your voters are thinking that you're doing a good job, you know, overall. Or they might have a good insight for us, you know, something that we hadn't considered before. You might start to see a trend in a particular area that you just didn't see before. So that's the idea there. And then if you continue on, over to the next. Susan gave me a set of broadband internet questions, or broadband questions, actually, that are intended to really just get people thinking about broadband needs and where they might want to be going with broadband. So I've included those in there, and they'll go back to, I think, is it MC?
Well, MCTV is
MCTV.
interested in the topic, but it's also for the broadband discussion that's happening in economic development, you know, to continue that and
Should
be
we ask-
helpful.
I'm sorry, Susan, should we be asking also if they're willing to pay for broadband?
It's a good question.
It's a huge question. Everybody wants it. Are you willing to pay for it? Because it's
They
an
might,
important question.
That can definitely be added.
Mhm.
And should it be as open-ended as that, or do we give them
I think you need to give
a range?
a range.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure how I would structure what the range of price options are. Do you have an idea of what they would be?
No, I think we can get the
Reach out to
information.
our,
Tilson?
You could talk to Brian.
I was thinking of Brian, if we reach out to Brian, what's
Okay.
reasonable?
I mean, Laura had said too that sometimes we want to take something and do a much more in-depth kind of study. We could certainly do that, and do that like a Survey Monkey if we want to get into real in-depth stuff. I don't know. I wouldn't know how to structure that one. We can ask Brian. He is on the road right now, so.
We have time.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. I just
think it's an important question to ask when you're talking about broadband.
Yeah, well, Laura was asking us what's going to happen to this information, and that's a good question too. So I would hope that it would get into there.
Right.
I think Brian will probably come back and say, you know, if you're going to do a range, it could be anything.
Well, you might give some, like, you ever looked at used cars online?
Yeah.
You know, everything that you want from one, you know, under 5,000, 5 to
Ranges.
10,000, 10 to
Okay.
15,000. So you could give them 5 different ranges. What's the most you might ask the question, what's the most you'd be willing to pay for a high-speed broadband network?
And I think you can keep it that simple, too. I mean, I think we can get that information. I mean, I keep going back to Burlington Telecom, and when they went to sell it, it was so expensive, everyone wanted it, but no one could afford to pay for it. So, I mean, that's a really important question in relationship to broadband.
Okay. And as Susan said, I didn't know whether this set of broadband questions would be better answered on a Survey Monkey type thing rather than a town poll, but we decided we had space for now. I mean, overall, you want to keep your survey short.
Short,
That's
yeah,
the
I
other
agree with
thing.
that.
So I'm trying not to go for more than 2 pages. And I'm also trying to keep it very easy for people to respond by checking things off. Or circling responses. So the questions on broadband actually were very open-ended, and I made them more
Yeah, you
close-ended.
restructured them for us, which was nice.
So that was the goal of the broadband questions. And then local items, this is just a sample. I'm not saying we should ask these. I was just trying to think of options that we could ask. It could be sort of like Doyle poll style, where people are simply saying yes, no. And we could ask lots of things. I just put 2 possible samples down there, and we don't have to ask these at all, but we could poll people on whether we should conduct town meeting on Saturday, for example. Or charge for a minor fee for Main Street parking to increase turnover, or not, you know, so we don't have to, or that might be a place where we start to ask about our local option tax, and be more specific in our questions about that. So you can think about that. The next set, are you aware of each of the following town projects? Again, just to help people know, again, that these projects are in progress and what their dates are or their delays might be. So,
The one thing on these I'm noted is maybe the part that's in parentheses, like the Middlebury Airport runway extension, it would kind of, if I was looking at that and didn't know about it, it would indicate, oh, they're gonna do that from February to April, and it'll be done in April. And so, maybe we wanna think through what we put in parentheses, if anything.
Which
And then
is-
the rail bridges construction, if you're really trying to give an update, it would be currently under environmental assessment process.
which is fine, exactly. We can, I'm just giving you a sense of what our
Yeah.
opportunity is.
Yeah.
If we,
That's my only comment on that.
Or
that would be
informing
really
people.
pretty critical that we, if somebody's gonna take that as a takeaway, no, I'm not aware, but yeah, now I know they're gonna do the airport runway February to April, well.
So what,
I have another question on that,
Okay.
too, sorry. I'm not sure what the goal of that is, of these. The last two make sense to me, like, water meter, because that's an ongoing project that they're gonna have to weigh in on. The town plan is gonna be an ongoing project that you weigh in on. But the first things are strictly informational, which if we have them on our website, I'm not sure why we're asking, are you aware of them? Okay. When you say you want the survey to be short, I just think it becomes important to, what's the goal of the question? What do you hope to get out of it? And I see the water meter in the town plan as being very relevant, but I'm not so sure, except for the people that live on Halpin Road, that the culvert repair is,
And all the people that go to Bristol on it.
yeah. I'm not sure.
it's,
That's just an opinion. I just think you have to keep it.
information.
it's a way of, it's a way of finding out if they are informed. And it's just another, because a lot of people may not go to the website or watch us on MCTV and get this information, but they will be coming
I
to
heard our
vote.
ratings are up.
We do.
Well, maybe
I think it's a good way to capture people, especially like with the airport. As soon as construction starts, people are gonna, I had no idea this was gonna happen. When? No, why didn't somebody tell me? It's another way to capture people and make them aware and ask questions if they're interested.
It could say spring 2017. Is that what you were worried about, Brian?
I think
or
Brian has a
nothing?
good point. Take out all the parentheses
Yeah.
stuff
Or
and
just
leave it
take out
way
the
it is.
parenthesis?
Yeah, and leave the rest.
Except for rail bridges construction. Or even that, yeah. So
Even
you're
that,
saying,
everything
I
in
might
parentheses.
just take out the parentheses part on the first four, if you're gonna, then they would, if they're curious about it, they would go to it. And, ask
Okay.
the question, because many of those are moving targets, and
the only thing I'll go back to is that I could add another 10 things in there.
I know.
Do you know who the Better Middlebury Partnership is? Do you know what they do for you? My thing is, I don't know, I'm just simply saying, if you're going to keep it to 2 pages, you need to be pretty selective about what you're asking people that they're aware of. And my only reason for asking that is, what's the goal? If you think those are the most important projects going on in the town to be aware of, then I think they're fine. But I do think something like, do you know who, what these organizations do for you, what's available? It's just hard to pick and choose what should be in there, that's all I'm saying.
Well, last year in the town poll, we actually did have a longer list of websites, which was a way of making people aware of those other organizations. And we could go back to that, or it would take the whole front page, but maybe that's okay, because you can add parenthetical information after each one, like I did, with the town websites, that people can respond to. Somebody wrote in, well, you should have added Middlebury to this list, so it's useful. It's not going to get everything, but it could get some things, and it's really just giving people an opportunity to be engaged with you and to capture a comment or suggestion that they might want to offer, and get them on the town email list if they're not on the town email list already. I mean, I see those as the primary goals of the survey.
I just wanted to throw a suggestion out there. Maybe the first question should be, how do you want information? Millennials don't even use email anymore, so asking how to get it. I know about the meter issue. I have a well because of Front Porch Forum. Ask people how they want to even find it before. I don't know. That's like the
We
first
actually
question.
did ask that question last year with regard to the rail bridge construction and how they wanted to get information. It was kind of a hybrid, but it might still be good to have them check off the various responses again and see if one really rises higher than the others. So that's a good suggestion.
But people tend to be proactive about things that affect them,
Mhm.
and if it's not affecting them, they're not going to. So how do you access them that way?
Do you have a suggestion for what the various
I can only
vehicles are?
speak to what I personally use, but it's not going to be the same as what Jason uses or what Victoria uses. Like, we all use,
Mhm.
have preferred ways, you know?
Mhm.
At our house, it's tablets and phones. Other folks use laptops. Others use, Gaddison Independent. So it really depends on who you're talking to.
Okay,
Yeah, good point.
good point. Any other?
So, why don't we, if anybody has any other suggestions, shoot an email to.
Kind of the same thing about, like, questions like, conduct town meeting on Saturday. If that's something you're thinking about, considering, you want to have people's input in, I would put it like that. Otherwise, I think I would ask the question in, would there be a better day or time for you to attend town meeting? So then people could put, like Friday night or Saturday, or I'd rather do it on Monday or Sunday. And then if you got a lot of answers saying a particular day, you might want to look at that and consider it. But this to me limits it either like Saturday, yeah, no.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah.
Okay. That's,
So-
any other, and so if
Why don't
people
you
want to
bring
give
our
me,
next draft to the next meeting.
Feedback, you
with the
can.
feedback, yeah, and any other feedback, let's shoot an email to Laura. Thanks for creating that, Laura.
Good job.
I just, because it is a draft and you got everybody talking at it, and when do you expect to have it
For the-
ready? Early voting starts February 15th, and because we're in new facilities for town meeting and that, I want to make sure we have it available for people if they're voting and things.
so we should finalize it by the next select board meeting.
Next select board meeting?
I mean, if you can, but just putting it out there, if we have it in the office when people are voting. we'll
When's
give it to
the
them at
start?
same time.
February what?
15th.
Okay. Okay.
I was gonna ask about that, and, other ways for people to fill it out, an insert in the newspaper, Front Porch Forum link, if you really wanna extend, not just at town meeting.
Well, it's, again, another conversation. We've never provided it before town meeting, and so already it's expanded because early voters can come in and and respond to it.
Just having a different setup this year, with the meeting being the evening meeting at the high school and then voting here, everything just has a different feel, so to
Yeah.
make sure that people have the opportunity.
Okay.
Is that where town meeting is?
Town meetings at the high
I think in
school.
your warning, you have that.
Town
But we'll
meetings-
have to ratify that through the BCA.
I didn't even know that.
What?
I thought it was in the new gym, where
Well,
town meeting
and
was.
to that point, I have an idea for a postcard, which I shared with Kathleen. This was our postcard last year. And I thought that maybe we have an opportunity to go to a larger format, which you can't see right now, but I'll pass down the row here so you can get and we can talk about this at the next meeting too, or maybe I need to flesh this out more with Kathleen. But I thought, go to a bigger size and a bigger font where the front would, really announce, save the date, town meeting at the new location of the Middlebury Union High School in the auditorium Monday, March 6th, and Australian ballot voting in the new town office here at 77 Main Street next to Ilsley Library, Tuesday, March 7th, and that copies of the town report and budget are available at townofmiddlebury.org or upon request. So that's right on the front, nice and large when you get this in your mailbox. And then on the back, we have the opportunity to put any general information like our staff or our select board or, our town manager, our town clerk, the website and address. So I'll just pass that down so you can get a sense of that, as another vehicle for just communicating with voters about the changes and
So
who
this
we
would
are.
be like a flat card? This
It
is
would be a
just-
flat card, and
just-
I would just say, let's make it maybe white with black or blue
Yellow always
ink.
makes me think that they're telling me that I have a new phone book that I can pick up. So I gotta learn.
Not yellow.
Not yellow.
Give it some color.
Well, it doesn't have to have a lot of color, but our color is blue,
Red.
Right.
Right.
So,
Is that your board member concern?
that's it.
Heather?
So, I don't know if everyone is following Front Porch Forum, but there was quite a bit discussion about the new water costs. I don't know, Kathleen, if you saw that or if you needed. Do we have a way of responding? I'm so tempted sometimes to respond, but I don't know whether I should or not.
Well,
So, I just
can-
wondered what that.
I can respond to that if you're not. I know that Jackie has been responding to all the Front Porch Forum.
She's actually here to respond. You want to give the board an update?
What I'm trying to do, I've been following Front Porch, I try to pull their email as best I can and respond to their email, letting them know. A lot of people are concerned that it's not a full quarter billing. It is, it's a full 3 months.
Could you come up here so we can hear better? Because I know that a lot of people are asking the question.
So the questions that I'm getting is it a full quarter, the billing? Because the date that's showing up is from like November 29th to the end of December. And those happen to be the dates either when your meter was installed or when it was input into the software. So it is a full 3-month billing. If it seems high, I really would encourage people to call the office and we can go through your particular readings and work it through. I mean, everybody, I've seen so many different scenarios that I would really just encourage them to call me, so.
Okay. Does that help?
Yes, I was just, my main concern was that we were not responding if people had concerns, but Jackie's on top of it. So.
I agree, I was so tempted to respond, and people have urged me to respond, but I don't think it's the right way
Yeah,
to do it, so.
okay. So good, I just wanted to make sure. And then there were also some emails sent out with concerns about Public Works. Kathleen, are you responding to those or somebody?
I have forwarded those to the Director of Public Works Operations.
Okay. Okay, I guess I'm just always tempted to want to respond, but not sure that it's my place and who is, I guess I want to make sure somebody is responding to people's concerns, I guess is ultimately.
Typically Kathleen takes care of that with the department head.
Okay.
And if I suspect she didn't get it, I forward it to Kathleen.
Okay,
But I think the ones you're talking about, I know Kathleen gets.
okay, all right.
Question on the water meter. That's going to be continuing, I assume, as people get new water meters installed, that there's a possibility. So water meter bills, are they just a postcard or do they go out in an envelope?
They are just a postcard.
Okay, so you can't put a slip of paper with them I'm thinking of a way to be proactive for the next round when they get that, if there's some way.
What we're trying to come up with now is something that the installer can give to the homeowner, that your next bill, this is the way it may look.
Great.
And then we'll catch up with the ones that we've missed so far. Just send it to them. This is what you can expect, and if you have any questions, this is where to call.
Perfect.
Jackie also explained to me that some people have been reading the wrong meter on their house, so there has been, like they've been reading an older meter instead of.
There's a Rockwell meter on the outside that we abandoned 15 or more years ago, and a lot of people don't realize that we are in your house in a Badger meter, so. So
So,
that's
Used any
past
water
some
in
of the
15
really,
years.
really high readings that we just,
so I would say if anyone's watching tonight, that if they do see that kind of discrepancy in their water bill, they should definitely contact us and we can see if we can resolve it.
No, those are my two, thank you.
Okay. Nick?
No, I just want to add to that discussion that I think we might want to state, though, that we're welcome, people to send us emails. I mean, one of the,
Oh,
I mean,
yeah.
I understand that, you know, we're trying to address things that we see on Front Porch Forum. However, if you have a complaint or a problem, it's really pretty good to actually reach out to someone directly here in the town offices that could perhaps
Yeah.
address the issue you're concerned with. So people should feel free to email us.
Yeah, I didn't want to
No.
discourage, I just want to
No,
make
I'm
sure
with you.
that there was response happening.
And actually, your email's right on the website, right, Jackie?
yes.
So,
So are ours.
yeah. And I get my share of emails.
Yeah.
Try to reply to every one of them. Victor? Susan?
Good.
Okay, so I think we got a number of tasks ahead of us. Please get your list of candidates for, Victoria, did you have a question?
Well, I really appreciated Laura's comment about economic health as opposed to economic development, because I think supporting local existing businesses expand and then, you know, is as important as new business. So I just really valued that. I didn't get a chance to say that earlier. Thank you.
Good point. So along that line, our discussions on economic development, please get your candidates lists to Kathleen, and so that we're prepared by the next board meeting to establish our committee, so that we do not lose time on that effort. And the other thing we need to do, I guess, Kathleen, is start talking about our format for town meeting at the next meeting. Long night, but thank you. I think we got a lot done.
Thank
So
you.
I will,
Adjourning.
earlier than you thought.
I'm never betting against this guy here.
So we'll adjourn at 9:36.